Alright everyone, it's time for some more bug news. Please like and subscribe, it helps the channel out quite a bit. This story was from yesterday, it's from the UK's Independent. The rise in number of starving bats seen in England. And this is associated, or at least it is thought to be associated with the decline of insects in the area, specifically the decline in moths. Although I think it's probably bigger than that. Bats, although famously feed on moths, they generally feed on a lot of small insects, particularly things like mosquitoes. But they, blame just everything under the sun in this. But it is a concerning problem because bats are generally a well-liked animal. It's kind of a charismatic fauna that people get behind the conservation of bats. So this will attract a lot of attention, which is good. Although they need to be more clear with what people can do about this and what the cause of this probably really is. So conservationists have found an increased number of starving bats throughout the UK. Specifically, there's two species that are showing up extremely malnourished. Part of it is just temporal. The summer over in the UK this year has been very cold and very wet. And so there hasn't been, one, as many insects flying, and two, the bats haven't had a lot of rain-free nights in which they can go forage for insects. So you end up with a lot of malnourished bats. But one of the things that they do bring up, other than constantly blaming climate change, which is something that they always do, but they do actually touch on the fact that a lot of bat habitat has been lost from overdevelopment. And this is something on this channel that I've talked about multiple times, which is that the UK has introduced or imported way too many people too quickly, and it's caused massive overdevelopment in the countryside and in kind of wilderness habitat areas, and it's caused major problems for the wildlife there. So you have now this issue with the bats. They aren't finding any food, and they're becoming extremely malnourished. Finally, it's getting a little more attention. But there's just some other things that aren't being talked about very well, because they talk about, well, butterflies are declining, which they are. Butterflies in the UK have declined quite a bit, but it's not like these bats are foraging on butterflies. Unless they're flying during the day, in which case they're really starving, they're foraging on nocturnal insects. But one of the things that hasn't been brought up is that this has only become a problem in really the last 5 years. So you can, blame global warming, or one of the things that they're blaming is the farmers' increased use of pesticides, which isn't true. Farmers in the UK have actually been reducing the amount of pesticides that they've been spraying significantly over the last 20 years. So this is not, you can't blame these generally improving factors like agricultural usage for the destruction of the insect population or the bat population. It doesn't make any sense. You have to look at things that have happened either in the last 5 years or at most the last 10 years. And the obvious thing with that is the explosion in the population in the UK, leading to paving over of countryside, and more importantly, which they haven't talked about here, is the absolute destruction and pollution of the local waterways. This has been something that's been getting more and more attention since probably March of this year, which is the huge increase in population has caused a breakdown of the sewer system. And so now you have sewage, raw sewage, and other pollutants just being dumped directly into riverways and directly into estuaries and things like that. And it's created toxic, uninhabitable rivers, which also destroys all of the invertebrates in those rivers. So normally these ponds and rivers, lakes, estuaries would be producing an enormous number of insects. These insects would then be feeding the bird and bat populations. So think mosquitoes and mayflies and odonates, so dragonflies, damselflies, a lot of different water beetles come out of these areas. All of these things have been poisoned by just enormous quantities of raw sewage being dumped into the waterways. It's something like 80% of UK waterways, 80 to 90% of UK waterways are now considered unhealthy and severely polluted. And this is a direct byproduct of overpopulation in the area. So we're going to continue to see this. The UK has not at all gotten this overpopulation issue under control. They've imported way too many people. Things are way too overdeveloped, and the infrastructure can't handle it. Now that's spilling over into nature preserves and wilderness and countryside issues. We'll hear more and more about this as the next couple of years go on, because it's just starting to unwind now. We're really starting to see the problems, the long-term problems with the impact on nature of this sorts of policy. So keep an eye on this. I'm sure we'll see more and more things becoming endangered or destroyed over the next couple of years. Talk to you guys later. Thanks.